Oh, my friends, it's important to pray for peace. Without praying for peace, where do we find hope for peace? And I'm reminded Yerushalayim, when we can constructively read that word as Ir Shalem, is a city of wholeness. And that's what I feel many of us want to create. The spiritual city of holiness in every place where we dwell. And the turmoil and pain of this last week, in the wake of the killing of George Floyd and the crackdown against protesters, people of color, all of it, I find hope and guidance and a productive way forward in this week's Torah portion. So we're in parashat Beha'alotecha, this lifting up of light, starting right there. But we need the reminder to lift up light. There's so much that happens in this portion, and I am focusing really, really tightly on one episode in our story. So the people are in need of leadership, and it's too much for Moses to bear by himself. So God instructs him, find 70 elders. They're going to share this responsibility of leading the people with you. And so they gather at the tent of meeting, and the Spirit of God rests upon them. They speak words of prophecy, and then they leave off. Here's where we're focusing. In my version of Plaut, I'm on page 964. The verses we're looking at is Bamidbar, we're in Numbers, chapter 11, verse 27 through 29. So that's Numbers, chapter 11, and I'm picking it up at verse 27. So the elders were speaking in ecstasy. Then we find these two other elders who had not gone out from the camp, Eldad and Medad, stayed in the camp. They were prophesying also, along with the 68 other elders who were with Moshe at the tent of meeting. But these two, Eldad and Medad, stayed behind, and they weren't stopping prophesying. An assistant ran out and told Moshe, saying, Eldad and Medad are acting the prophet in the camp. And Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' attendant from his youth, spoke up and said, My Lord, Adoni, Moshe, restrain them, Kla'im, make them stop. And Moses said to him, Are you wrought up on my account? Would that all the Eternal's people were prophets. Umi yutein, kol am Adonai nevi'im. Would that the Eternal would put the divine Spirit upon all of them. Ki yiten Adonai et rucho alehem. And then Moses re-entered the camp together with the elders of Israel. This very, very brief passage teaches something very, very important for me. We all have the potential to speak prophetically. And as a matter of fact, this is exactly what Moses desires for us. Would that all the Eternal's people were prophets. This is his wish for us, to be able to speak words of prophecy. But what does that mean? What does it mean to speak prophetically, to act as a prophet? I'm guided by the words of Abraham Joshua Heschel. This is from the introduction to his book, The Prophets. And here's what he says. To be a prophet, I'm paraphrasing him, to be a prophet means to be an individual who says no to one's society, condemning its habits and assumptions, its complacency, waywardness, and syncretism. And such a one's fundamental objective is to reconcile humanity and God. So Heschel's interpretation of what it means to be a prophet, I feel, calls for a little interpretation of its own. To reconcile humanity and God, that's an incredibly powerful and somewhat opaque statement. I've been wrestling with what that might mean all week. And here's one understanding, one of many possibilities. To reconcile humanity and God can mean for us to ensure that our actions are in alignment with the teachings of our tradition. for me to be able to bring my actions in the world in a way that is consistent with the vast sweep of Jewish thought and ethics. So in this week, where we are reeling with responses to George Floyd's murder, what are the words of Torah that we need to manifest in this world? And what response is appropriate for us to bring to bear? Our heritage is very consistent, from the ancient times to the rabbis, the Middle Ages, and beyond. There is no one single text that I'm bringing to you right now, because quite honestly, there is a multiplicity of sources that I feel are extraordinarily convenient and harmonious together. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, shall love your neighbor as yourself, says in Leviticus 19:18, and just a few verses later it says, you shall love the stranger as yourself as well, just in case we didn't get the point the first time. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. We led off with these words today from Deuteronomy 16:20. Justice, justice you shall pursue. And of course there's the words of Rabbi Hillel from Shabbat 31a. Do not do unto others that which is hateful to you. And all the rest is commentary. Go study. There are many, many more. I feel that Laurel and I, between the two of us, could probably go on well into the afternoon with many texts that reinforce this exact same point. So how do we reconcile, in Heschel's words, these teachings about striving for justice and equity and love with what we see in our world? I am sickened, really sick to my stomach, watching the videos of police brutality that we have seen and that we continue to see in many cases. And they must stop, and we must demand that that stops. And there's far more for us to protest. The callous treatment of protesters and the press is a symptom, I feel, of a larger system of injustice, of systemic inequality, of racism directed at our African American citizens and people of color that undergirds our economy, our politics, and the fabric of our community society as a whole. The very stereotypes that are perpetrated by Hollywood and our entertainment industry. The way that people of color are constantly being defined as the other. And last night, Rabbi Jonah Pesner spoke to this exact point to the assembled Metro West Jewish community in a presentation from the Religious Action Center. Heschel guides me. Once again, we still don't know. What do we have to do? How do we respond? Heschel says, in a free society, all are involved in what some are doing. Some are guilty, but all are responsible to our society. And I say amen to that, because by claiming responsibility for our society, we also claim our power. We also claim our agency to execute change. And as I shared with you earlier in the week, there is no one right or wrong way to act. The important thing Heschel is telling us is that we do act, and that we continue to act, to reach out to our African American friends and relatives and relations and colleagues, to all the people of color in our lives, offering our strength and love as proof of our unity. For us to protest injustice as we are able, at rallies, in social media, in conversations, to write to elected officials, to donate to causes that are anti-racist. And always, for all of us to educate ourselves about the systems in our country that are perpetuating inequity, and injustice. I very rarely look at bboards with the greatest of love, because I'm swamped with my normal email, and yet I was struck by the words of Michael Jacoby Brown earlier this week, along with many beautiful postings and poems. Michael reminds us to be aware of avoidance of contact. We need to learn about these systems so that we can change them. And I am posting on my Rabbi Josh B. Facebook page articles and readings that I'm encountering that are helping me learn about this issue. Parashat Beha'alotecha and this snippet from our portion challenges us to recognize our own potential to speak prophetically. Let's not emulate Joshua's words, with due respect to my namesake, who says that the people should be silent, that they should not be speaking words of prophecy. Instead, let's emulate Joshua a little later on in the story, when he absorbs Moses' teachings and the truth of his words, that all the people could and should have that power of prophetic speech. May we embody Moses' blessing that we come to be numbered among the people who speak as prophets. Let's embrace our ability to reconcile, again in Heschel's words, to reconcile the teachings of our tradition with the way that we act in our lives when we're not together here in this holy cloud, but when we're engaging with our world day by day. Let's bring our world into alignment with our values. Let's recommit ourselves to the teachings of our tradition, where mystically all the world and all time can be a Yom Shekulo Shabbat. Let us make of our world places and times where all are gifted the blessings of balanced justice, of wholeness, and of peace.
Amen. When we all come together, when we all come together, when we all come together, what a day of justice this will be. What a day of justice this will be. When we all come together, when we all come together, when we all come together, what a day of justice this will be. What a day of justice this will be.